Hey ladies, got a struggle? Need to vent? It's time to join your voice and get down to business with some critical thought, where like-minded ladies share their personal experiences to empower each other, using critical thinking to make wise decisions. And now, here's your host, Lady C.
Hi, this is Lady C. Welcome to another episode of The Struggles of Jehovah's Witness Women. My guest today has a very good story to tell everyone because she and her husband were on a Watchtower fast track and they were doing everything from A to Z for the organization. And then one day, everything kind of came to a halt because the wife got sick and the husband tried to go to her needs to help her out, and the Watchtower was like, "What are you doing?" So Jennifer is my upcoming guest, and she's going to talk about everything that happened in her assignment in serving where the need was great. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on The Struggles of Jehovah's Witness Women.
You're welcome, Lady C, and I'm very glad to be on the show today.
And I'm very happy that you're willing to tell your story to help other people to see just what type of organization the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is. Let's just talk a little bit about your history in the organization. How long were you in? Were you born in, raised in?
Yes, I was born and raised into the organization. I was baptized at age 17 and became a pioneer during marriage at the age of 28. And since then, things just kept going.
Okay, so you were baptized at age 17, and then you pioneered at age 28. How did you meet your husband?
Me and my husband met at a district convention in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay, and so when you all met, was it an instant connection?
Yes, it was. I noticed that he kept looking at me the whole time, but he would never say anything. But of course, me being the outgoing person, I usually don't ever approach a man, but this time I guess that proves he really was the one because I approached him on the third day of the convention, and once we started calling each other, we just hit it off right away.
So you mean you were at the convention, and it was a 3-day convention, and you guys kept running into each other then?
Yes, we did. We kept bumping into each other.
And then you just said, well, he's not going to say nothing, so I'm going to go ahead and say something.
Yeah. Yes, pretty much.
Okay. But of course, when if he wasn't interested, then no numbers would have been exchanged. So sometimes it does help when, we step up to the plate sometimes because it doesn't have to always be about the male approaching us. Sometimes they're just more nervous and shy, So
exactly.
What type of a Watchtower background did your husband come from? What was his life like in the organization prior to meeting you?
He was born and raised a witness like me, and of course, he always wanted to pioneer, so he started pioneering at a very young age, and then he had the goal of going to Bethel, so he eventually, when he got out of high school, he went to Bethel, and then he was there for 3 years.
Why did he leave after 3 years?
He decided that he had wanted to get married, and so he went ahead and he left Bethel.
Okay, so he didn't want to bring his wife to Bethel?
No, he didn't.
So then when you met him, how long had he been out of Bethel?
When I met him, he had been out of Bethel for about 2 years.
Okay. So obviously, with all these single sisters running around here, he didn't find anybody that quick, did he?
No, he was very picky about who he wanted to marry because a lot of the sisters, they did like him, and he did see a lot of sisters that were very pretty in appearance, but spiritual-wise, he didn't feel like they were up to his standards, I guess you want to say. It was all about the outer appearance, but the inner appearance, they didn't seem to have that.
When you think about it, there are nothing but single sisters out here looking for a mate.
Yes.
And when you have someone that leaves Bethel specifically because they want to get married, and then it's been 2 years and they haven't, made that step, it just goes to show that they really are serious about getting the right person. Because it's not just about, somebody being available. Is this person somebody that I want to be with?
Yes.
And did you guys live in the same area, or did you have to have a long-distance courtship?
We had a long-distance courtship.
And so then you guys got married, and then what was your goals in life that you had set for yourselves as a married couple?
We wanted to pioneer together as a couple, and we had talked about possibly going back to Bethel together as a couple, or or either get into the traveling work. So that was basically our goal.
So what ended up happening after you got married?
But after we got married, it wasn't long before life set in, and I ended up pregnant with my son,
Okay.
Devin. And that's when we realized that Bethel was out the picture as well as the traveling work.
Were you guys crushed?
Yes, we was. We was crushed for a while, and it shouldn't, it took years to realize that it shouldn't even have been like that. Having a child is even the Bible mentioned, that's a wonderful gift from God. But because of how the Watchtower have you mentally feeling and thinking, we were actually feeling like having a child was a curse. I hate to say that about my child, but because at the time we were so dead set on, we just have to go to either Bethel or either we have to be a circuit overseer couple. And so we just felt that this was not part of the plan.
Mhm. How did your family feel about it when they found out you were pregnant?
Oh, they were very excited. My family and his family, but we weren't.
And that's the culture of the organization, and especially knowing that your husband was at Bethel. So what ended up happening? You got pregnant, you had your child, you were just a regular couple in the congregation. Was your husband a servant or an elder at that time?
At the time, he was not serving, and so he was just working full-time job, taking care of the new baby. And then I had made it a goal that I was going to still try to build my time up as much as I could. So when the baby was old enough and the doctor gave me the okay to take the baby outside, of course, my first plan was out in field service. So no matter what, as long as the weather permitted, I was out in field service almost every single day with the baby. And everybody thought that was just so wonderful. So I had so much support from the congregation.
How did you feel about it? Did you feel like you were really happy? Did you enjoy doing that every day out in field service with the baby?
Yes, I felt like, this is the next best thing, and everybody was encouraging me. The elders were encouraging me. You can go ahead and sign up for auxiliary pioneering. So I went ahead and did that, and when they read my name off, I felt so good, like I've accomplished something, and, my husband was proud of me. And so the next step for me in the witness world was I can get on the pioneer list even with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband was like, I'm behind you 100%. So I went ahead, and that was my next goal. So everybody was encouraging me, and different friends that was already helping me. They were regular pioneers already. So I was out even more so with the baby and just struggling, trying to get my time. And next thing you know, they was reading my name for regular pioneer. And I was really ecstatic then because I was like, I've accomplished it. I've done it, even with a baby.
Mm-hmm. So you're on the Watchtower fast track.
I know, with a baby. Just sick in the head.
And not only that, you were on a fast track that was keeping you further and further from your own goals and desires and things that would set you up for your future, because you were out peddling Watchtowers and Awakes and so forth, and not realizing that you were putting a lot of your eggs in this one basket to wake up to find out, hey, wait a minute, we go in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm. And I'm pretty sure that because you were doing so well in the congregation in terms of pioneering, the spotlight now is on your husband because he's a former Bethelite, and now you seem to be holding your own, carrying your own weight. So now, of course, when is he climbing the ladder of success for himself?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. You have it right. So they went ahead and they appointed him as a servant, and then he was so encouraged by me, and then I was encouraging him, and then during that time we were going to the assemblies, and of course they was, they always are making you feel bad at the meetings and at the assembly about how, it doesn't matter if you're working full time, there's still different schedules and different ways you can get your time in and still regular pioneer. So he went ahead at that time and he prayed about it. We prayed about it as a family doing family worship. And he pulled up a kingdom ministry. They had different schedules that you can work with. They even had different lists of different schedules you can do just to get your 70 hours a month, even if you're working full time. So he was like, why can't I do this? Back then it seemed like it made sense. And, you're feeling like, okay, this is for God. This is for Jehovah. This is the least I can do after, with all he's done for us. But now we look back at it and we're like, that is so insane.
Mm-hmm.
But we went ahead, we prayed about it and made it a goal. He worked first at, to build up his time as an auxiliary pioneer like I did, and they announced his name, and he was doing good. I could tell he was exhausted because, he was working full time and he had responsibilities then in the congregation. But, he eventually worked up until he got on the list also. And so by this time, everybody in the congregation and in the circuit is looking at us like a stellar example, because not only are we a couple, but we have a baby and we're regular pioneering. And so
your husband was regular pioneering. He wasn't auxiliary pioneering? He
did auxiliary first. He worked up just like I did. And then after that, he got on the regular pioneer list.
Oh, wow. That was really rough.
Yes.
And worked full time. Okay.
Yes.
Were you guys invited to be on assembly programs?
Yes, we were on assembly programs. After that, we noticed that all of a sudden we started getting phone calls all the time to get on assembly and things like that. Different people would come up to us and be like, we wish we were like y'all. Y'all are making us look bad. And we were like, it's not about that. That's not why we're doing this. This is about our dedication. This is about our commitment to Jehovah and stuff like that. And it made me start thinking, and I was like, this isn't why I signed up for this, Mm-hmm. I don't want to make people feel bad. I don't want to make people feel like, why can't I do this? Or why can't I be like them? It started not feeling right. And then it got to the point where, behind closed doors, tension building up because he was so stressed out because he was working full time. He was trying to get his time in. Plus, he was handling congregation duty. And plus, we have a baby at home on top of that.
So when did you have time for each other?
We hardly had any time for each other. That was another issue.
So your husband is on a fast track. You already got there because you pioneer, and that's as high as you can go in the congregation as a pioneer. So now he makes it as a servant. How long does it take before he makes elder?
It wasn't but about 2.5 years, and they appointed him as an elder.
Okay. And then at this point, are you guys serving where the need is great yet?
At this point, we're in the first congregation.
And then you moved to another congregation?
Yes.
What made you guys move to that next congregation?
The next congregation was closer, for one thing, to where we were living at. And then on top of that, before we moved there, he had asked different friends about the elders, and he talked to some of the elders there and to see if was there a need there. And at that time, they didn't hardly have any servants because he wasn't a servant yet.
So when y'all went to y'all second congregation, he gets appointed as a ministerial servant in that congregation?
Yes.
Okay. So now you're in that congregation. How did you like that hall?
Oh, we loved it. We loved the friends. We was there the longest. We was there, 5, 6 years?
Okay. So that was a good congregation for you. So now, in that congregation, your husband is appointed as a servant, and you guys are pioneering. He's a servant, and you're on a fast track. You're doing very well. Yeah,
and then he even got appointed as an elder in that congregation also.
Okay. So he gets appointed as an elder in that congregation. Now, at that point, the friends, you still like the friends, everything's going well, and your life is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So now you said you were a part of 3 different congregations during your Watchtower career. So now, when do you get to the next congregation? What's the circumstances surrounding you going to this 3rd congregation?
We prayed about the situation, and we said, you know what, we want to do even more. So by this time, the circuit overseer comes through, and we talk to him. And he gives us 3 choices, the 3 congregations throughout the circuit that needs help. The only one that was the closest to us and that was more reasonable since we had a child, and that was closest to our home at the time and good for us because of my child's school, was the one that we ended up going to, the 3rd congregation. And so even though everybody kept warning us and telling us not to go there because everybody knew the history of this congregation, and there was a reason why nobody would go help this congregation. And they kept saying, please don't go. And they kept begging us, don't go. We was like, well, this congregation is suffering. It's been suffering for years. Jehovah's people need help. They're suffering, and nobody else want to step up to the plate. So we prayed about it, and we're going to go ahead and go.
What kind of stuff were they saying about that congregation?
That people were sleeping with other people. It was getting swept under the rug. That someone had got molested, and it was swept under the rug. One of the elders was an alcoholic, and of course, nobody said nothing because he was an elder. It was just all kind of things going on within the body and that nobody was doing anything. And then the only thing that did get handled was because one of the circuit overseers that came through a few years back didn't play. It ended up coming out that one of the elders was stealing money for years from out of the contribution box. And this was going on for years. And it ended up equaling up to over 30-some thousand or something like that. But that's the only reason why he got deleted. It ended up some kind of way getting brought to the circuit overseer's attention while circuit overseer was serving that congregation.
Okay, so he didn't get the fellowship, he got deleted.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Things like this has been going on in this congregation for years, and things that people normally get this fellowship for, it doesn't happen in this congregation.
Somebody was just abusing their power, and I don't think people realize it, but your experience, no doubt, is all over the country, world, whatever, because, there's maybe just some brothers are not as bad as others, but there's a lot of people who belong to congregations, and they hate it. Because if you're not in the in crowd, you feel it. And a lot of times the elders have a good old boy network. If you're not part of that network, you feel it. You really do. So you guys don't realize it, but you're getting ready to go into the lion's den.
Yes, that's what it was. And that's what the other elders, older elders, and one of them in particular in the congregation we were leaving, he had been in that congregation for years before he came to the congregation we were in presently. And so he was trying to warn us in so many ways without coming out telling us that he used to be over there. And what he was trying to tell us was that it was a good old boys club, and that if you're not in that club, like you just said, then there's about to be a bunch of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And
then let me ask you this. You guys are thinking to yourself, this is Jehovah's organization. Of course Jehovah wouldn't do that to us.
Yes, that's what we were thinking.
Yeah.
That's what
the average witness thinks. Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't trying to hear nothing that none of them was saying to us because we felt we had Jehovah's Spirit. He was with us all this time so far. And so we were going to go over there and we was going to make big changes. And like fools.
What was it like, your first visit to that congregation?
The actual congregation was so happy to have us. It was so sad. It was sad. They looked to my husband like he was actually Jesus, because the whole congregation knew that it was a bunch of mess going on between the elders, and they knew that they didn't have the authority or the power to do anything about it. And so they felt, here comes a young brother, healthy brother, and he seemed to have his mind straight. He seemed to be spiritual. They know they've seen us on a bunch of assembly parts. They knew that the circuit overseer sent us there. So they felt that, okay, the house about to get cleaned out, found. And so they looked to us as their savior. And so talking about, they treated us with open arms. They welcomed us. They fed us. I mean, they were so loving, or shall I say, conditionally loved us.
So they rolled out the red carpet for y'all.
They rolled out the red carpet. And the elder body, they had a scheme of their own. Since they knew that the circuit overseer had sent my husband, they wanted to see whether or not he was going to be part of their good old boy club. So they buttered him up and treated him like he was like he was their son, because they were older men. So they joked around with him and played around with him to see if he was going to be, I guess, one of them.
And what happened?
I guess to try to fill him out to see how he was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
He, my husband, he likes to laugh. He likes to joke and stuff like that. But when it came to spiritual things, and when it came to right and wrong and what the Bible say, and he was gun-ho about what the governing body said back then. And so, cause we were so brainwashed. Mm-hmm. So when it came to that, he wasn't going to play. And so when they saw that he, no matter what, he was going to stick to what the faithful and discreet slave class said, then that's when they started kind of backing up a little bit.
So now, what is the first obstacle in this congregation that your husband happens to run up against?
I think the one that sticks out in my mind is how they handle things. Different things would happen in the congregation that was supposed to be judicial, and the person would go and confess to one of the elders, And instead of one of the elders going and saying, okay, let's go call a judicial meeting, they would just call up their buddies on the phone and then call up another buddy, and all three of them would talk about it. And they'll meet privately without letting any of the other elders know, and talk with the person, and then that'll be it. And the only way to get back to the other elders what happened is that everybody in the congregation gossiped real bad, and it'll end up getting back to the elders that way, like through gossip, like playing cards together over a card game, and they'll be like, so and so got in trouble because they went and smashed up somebody's car, and they'll be like, what? When that happened? Oh, the other day when she went and told brother so and so. Well, wait a minute. Well, how come? And my husband would be sitting right there, and then I say, Twan, did you know that so and so went and did thus and thus? And he'll be like, when that happened? And that started happening so much, and my husband would have to go call another elder, and he'll be like, when that happened? And so him and another elder are going to call another elder, and then they'll be like, yeah, this and this happened, but we handled it.
Oh, so the elder body didn't meet and then assign it from the elders on the body. They chose who they wanted to.
Mhm.
And then they didn't tell the other elders that they were meeting with someone.
Nope.
But it's funny because now we know that whole system is bogus now. But I mean, that was the way it was supposed to be done. So I know what you're saying. Right.
Yep. We know the whole thing is bogus now, but back then it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're doing it.
Oh, that is so crazy. Did you and your husband ever have a conversation about what the friends were telling y'all not to go there, that you wish you would have listened to them?
Oh, yes. After about 2 or 3 months, we like, Lord, they were right. It's just seems something just way more wrong with this congregation than normal.
And see, the thing is, you have a child, you're pioneering, your husband's pioneering, he's working a full-time job, and now you're dealing with this crazy congregation. How long did it take before it started to affect your health?
The crazy part is that my health started acting up before we went to this congregation.
Okay.
And we still did it.
Oh, you must have had a lot of faith.
I'm going to tell you, this whole Watchtower thing, when I sit back and I just think about it sometimes, I get so angry and so mad. But then I think about it, and I'm like, well, dog, I was the dumb one. I was, some of this stuff, sometimes I say I had control over it, and again I say, well, dog, I was brainwashed, though. So sometimes I say, how much of it did I have control over and how much of it did I not have control over? Because you feel like even though you're sick, if you don't do more, and if you don't keep doing more, Jehovah doesn't love you. So I was stuck in that mind frame. So my health started deteriorating in the second congregation because remember when I told you that in the second congregation, me and him both was regular pioneering, and I had the baby. I was out all the time with the baby. I was pushing myself and didn't know it. I was doing way too much. I started noticing where when I came home, because I still had to come home. I still had to make sure that I had everything prepared for the baby. I had to make sure I cooked for my husband when he came home from work. I had to still make sure that, my wifely duties were done, that clothes were washed, the house was clean. And then, of course, the life of the Watchtower, you had to make sure that if it was a meeting night, that you had them prepared for the meeting. And then when you're a pioneer, oh, Lord, everybody is always calling you, asking you, can you substitute for a talk? Can you fill in for a part on the service meeting? Can you help do a demonstration? So I always had to make sure I was prepared for the meeting. And so I didn't realize that I was putting too much stress on my body. And so I started noticing that when I would come home from field service, that I would just pass out pretty much. I would just go to sleep. And so here I am, my baby like maybe 2 years old. And one time I literally woke up and my child was sitting next to me. And he had took his Snoopy blanket and had put it over me. Like he had tucked me in.
Oh, Lord.
I felt so bad because I'm like, he could have crawled and gotten into anything. Anything could have happened. I'm talking about when I say I was so fatigued, I just passed out. It's like I just couldn't. I don't even know still what happened. All I know is I woke up later. Mm-hmm. There have been times when I came home and all I can do was barely get out the car, get my son out the car, get inside of the house, make sure that I get him inside of the playpen so I can make sure, that he was safe in the playpen, and just barely make it to the couch. And I would just pass out. That's just how wiped out I was. And I wasn't even getting paid. But the thing that when I woke up and I told, my pioneer partner about it, she'll be like, well, that's a good spiritual tired. And I would laugh it off and say, yeah, it is. So for the first probably month of that, I kind of brushed it off as, it's just a spiritual tired, And so I wasn't really giving much thought to it. Then it went from that to actually feeling weak, actually feeling like not just sleepy, but actually not hardly being able to actually hold my son, like feeling like I didn't have any bones in my body, like just feeling like just jello-y. And so it started getting to the point where I had to pull over. My pioneer partner had to actually drive me home, me and my son home, help me and my child up into the house. And different times she'll be like, do you want me to take you to the emergency room? At first I'd be like, no. And so she'll just go ahead and she'll take my son home with her until my husband get home and make sure he was taken care of. And I would just lay in the bed because I didn't know what was going on with my body. And I knew that I was too weak to get up and care for my son. And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but this is crazy. And I didn't know how to describe it. Every day was just getting worse and worse. Everybody had their own theories. Everybody got their own opinion. For out in field service, you got all these pioneer sisters. You need to drink more water. You need to do this. You need to go to the health store. You need to take this. You need to take that vitamin. You need to do this vitamin. So for a long time, I was just buying up all these different herbs and all these different vitamins, and I was drinking drinking water and doing this and that, and nothing was helping. It just seemed like my symptoms were getting worse. So finally, it just got to the point where I went ahead and my husband noticed where we would be going somewhere, like if me and him was in service together, and I'll be fine, I'll be normal. And next thing you know, I'll be like, I have to go back to the car. I have to go to the car now. And he'll hurry and rush me back to the car, and I'll sit down. And next thing you know, my heart was racing. I felt like I was going to faint. And he'll turn the AC on. And then next thing you know, he said, it's almost like I was passed out or something, but I'll be asleep. And I'll just sleep. When we get home, I couldn't even, when he wake me up, I'll be awake, but I couldn't walk inside the house. He had to almost like carry me inside the house. And when he finally for himself saw my condition, instead of me just trying to explain my condition, and he saw for himself what was going on with me, he went ahead then and he was like, okay, you need to go to a specialist. And I went first to my regular doctor, and I explained what was going on. They ran all kind of tests. Of course, they didn't see anything. And so they went ahead and, referred me to a specialist, rheumatologist. And that's when they told me, they did all kind of extra tests on me. And they told me that I had fibromyalgia. And then they did even more blood work and stuff on me. And they told me that I had Sjogren's syndrome, which it's in the category of a type of lupus.
That's nothing to play with.
Yeah, I'm like, what in the world? And so after that point, I mean, they're like, they told me what to do and what not to do. So my son, who by this time is like 4 years old, he's extremely hyper. I mean, like way well above hyper. I take him to the doctor, find out he's ADHD. I mean, his anxiety level was just through the roof. And I was like, why is his anxiety so high? And I never knew why he was so anxious. And he would always talk about death. He would always, be scared of death. Like, he would say, Mommy, we'd be walking in field service, and me and my pioneer partners, and even whoever else, we would all be in the street. And stuff like, get out the road, a car might hit you and you might die. And I'm like, he's 4 years old, and all he talks about is death. And I'm like, why? All he do is go to the Kingdom Hall, and so why is this obsession with death? And so the doctor, his pediatrician told me, was like, go ahead and he has to go to a psychiatrist. So on top of all of this, and I'm thinking, why is all of this happening to me? I'm doing all I can for Jehovah. I'm a regular pioneer. I had my child out since he was born, non-stop in field service. My husband is working full time. He's giving his all to Jehovah. He's a regular pioneer, and all of this that we're going through. So I've asked this to elders, and I've even asked this to 2 different circuit overseers that came through. The only answer I can get from them is, the more you do for Jehovah, the more Satan attacks you. So then that wasn't encouraging to me. So I'm like, I don't understand. I'm confused. So I would leave them even more confused. Like, I don't get it. And then I remember sitting in the Kingdom Hall, and I remember a brother giving a talk, and it was about how, turn to Jehovah and throw your burdens on him. So I would, in prayer, just throw all my burdens on him. Because I remember days, my son, my husband had to go to work, so it would be just me and my son. And I would just have these setbacks with the fibromyalgia, and I'd be in bed. And I literally cannot move. I could not get out the bed. I couldn't not even go to the bathroom. I would just be laying there. And I would be in tears, and I'd be praying, and I'd be like throwing my burdens on Jehovah. And I never felt any relief whatsoever. And I'm like, he said throw your burdens on him. Why am I not getting any relief? So then I turned to the other scripture, and I would read it, where Jesus said, come to me all who are toiling and loaded down, and I will refresh you. And I'm like, I don't understand. Why would Jesus promise that if you come to him and if you're loaded and stuff, he will refresh you? I don't feel any refreshment. I would ask my husband that. I would ask elders that and stuff, and they didn't have an answer for me. All they would keep saying is, the more you do for Jehovah, that's part of doing more for Jehovah. The more you do for him, Satan don't come after you more.
So all of this is going on in the second congregation?
Yes, this is all going on in the second congregation. Yeah, and so my son, needless to say, my son was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety disorder, and depression. And so come to find out, the depression came from him, ever since he was little, seeing me come home and passing out, sleeping, and him being a baby, just, him not knowing what's going on with his mama.
Well, see, the thing is, you're not giving him any attention. All of your energy that you had for your child, you were out in the streets for Watchtower selling these magazines.
Yeah.
And then by the time you got home and you needed to be with your child, you had no more energy left.
Yeah, I was gone.
Now, let me ask you a question. So all of this is going on in the second congregation, and then you guys want to do more?
Yes, that's the crazy part. So at this point, they put me on some medication. The medication, it kind of was working for the fibromyalgia a little bit, but not much. But, of course, the different friends, I kind of took a chill, and I was sitting back for a while. I was even thinking about coming off the list. A bunch of the older sisters and everybody else started giving their opinions, and he was like, you don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. They was like, there's no need in doing that. I got this disease, I got that disease, and I've still been pioneering for 30, 40 years. It's still ways to get your time, and I had a child while I did it, and blah, 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 blah. And so on top of me having all these illnesses, and I don't know if I mentioned it or not, on top of that, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder myself and major depression. I guess because of all I was going through. Mm-hmm. And the friends, I never, ever told them about the mental side of it because I didn't want them in my business. So they never knew that I was suffering with depression and anxiety disorder. All they knew about was the fibromyalgia and the Sjogren's syndrome. But I'm talking about all I got was there's no need in coming off the list. I can come over and help you write letters. I can do this. We can do phone territory together. Days that you do feel good, we can go do calls, do Bible study, blah, blah, blah. It's like no matter what I said, they had an answer for it.
For our listening audience, you have a person and they're trying to keep you on the pioneer list, and they're coming up with all these solutions for how to get your time in. And the whole thing is about time. There's no one even thinking about she can't do this anymore. They're just thinking, we're going to get some time in here, Yeah. And what's the time for? The time is for you showing how many hours somebody spoke to people on behalf of the Watchtower and what they want people to do. So it was really kind of sad that you put your body through all that for no reason. you're going through all of this stuff, and then you're being told by other people, don't go to that congregation because it's crazy over there, and you guys go anyway. So did you ever come off the pioneer list before you went to this third congregation?
No, I did not.
Okay, so when you went over there, you were regular pioneering.
I was still regular pioneering.
And you took all your health issues with you?
Took all my health issues with me.
Okay. How long were you in that congregation before the house of cards came down?
I would say I was able to kind of so-called play it off a little bit for about 3 months.
Oh, wow. 3 months? I thought you were going to say 3 years. I don't mean to laugh. Okay. You said 3 months. Okay.
It was about 3 months.
Oh my God.
And then it's like the muscle, my muscles started locking up again, while I was out in service, and the weakness started, the fatigue started setting in certain days. And so it wasn't long before I couldn't fake it. I had to go ahead and just admit, that I had fibromyalgia. So
at that point, did you tell the elders that you wanted to come off the list?
Yes, I did. I was talking to just about every elder in there, but each time I talked to one of them, they all said the same thing. Not one of them said, do what you got to do for your health. All of them said the same thing. They said, you don't have to worry about coming off the list. Just do what you got to do. Just take your time, but don't worry about coming off the list. I'm not that kind of brother that go around trying to pull people off the list.
So in other words, they're just saying, put whatever time you can in, and we will keep you on the list.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you, no doubt, being the Christian that you are, you're not really feeling comfortable with that, knowing that you can't, meet these hour requirements.
I wanted to hear from them Jehovah understand. That's what I wanted to hear from them, was Jehovah understand, because I'm feeling like Jehovah appointed these men by means of the Holy Spirit. So if these men say Jehovah understands, then that's almost like Jehovah saying himself that he understands. But with me constantly hearing from every elder in all these congregations that, stay on, but, don't worry about the time, then to me, it was feeling like extra pressure to do something that I knew I wasn't capable of doing. I just felt guilty, like if I wasn't making my time, I wasn't being blessed. And that crap was just playing with my mind. It was mentally playing with me.
So now, you have all these medical problems. You're pioneering. Your son, he's been diagnosed with ADHD. Your husband, he's no doubt experiencing issues because with both of you down, he's no doubt feeling the effects of what you can't do at home. So how is he taking all of this?
He, at this point, having all this pressure from his congregation, extra pressure, and finding out that he pretty much stepped into more than what he could handle in his congregation. After about 4 or 5 months of being in that congregation, he said, he went ahead and he talked to the circuit overseer, and he said, look, he said, I need help. He said, I need you to send in another brother to help me with this congregation. And he laid it all out about what was going on, and it was not pretty, the stuff he was telling him. And the brother would not send him any help. He just kept brushing it off like, oh, it'll be okay. And the brother knew our situation. He knew more so than anybody else about what I was going through, what our son was going through. He knew about everything, and he would not send in no other brothers to help us.
Well, let me ask you this. What kind of help did you need? Because you got these other elders there, so what type of help did your husband need?
Well, I think he needed more so of moral support. I think it was more so like doing paperwork and stuff correctly and handling things that was supposed to be handled in the congregation correctly.
Oh, so they weren't doing organizational procedures. So you had all these brothers there, but they were doing things their way, and they weren't following the society's procedures and guidelines for handling the congregation. So your husband's the only one doing that. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And it was running him. It was running him, crazy, pretty much.
Okay. So they're like renegade elders then.
Yeah. It didn't have one elder. The congregation was laughing at because he came to the meeting stone drunk. Every meeting, and he was a secretary, and he would go up on stage, eyes fiery red, and he smelled like alcohol, strong alcohol every meeting, and everybody knew it, and it was just, it was crazy stuff going on, and he really didn't even know how to do. He was a secretary for years, and he didn't even really know how to perform secretary duties. So everybody was running. When we moved over there, everybody ran to my husband and was wanting him to help with their jobs, and it was a mess.
Was this the elders looking for help or the ministerial servants?
The elders.
Okay. So who was the ringleader of the elders, would you say?
You mean in doing dirt?
Uh-huh. Who really had the control? Who had the control?
I would say the one that they had appointed as the coordinator, since the other coordinator was stealing money and they had deleted him, because the coordinator, he was a slick talker. And so he was the ringleader, and he knew how to slyly control the rest of them.
So he was manipulating everybody. So everybody was yes men to this coordinator.
Yeah.
And the coordinator wasn't handling the elder that was a drunk. He just let him stay on staff.
Yeah, because they was all really, really good friends.
Mhm. So now your husband, he's explaining this to the circuit overseer, who does not really want to hear this. And so now, what do you and your husband do at this point?
At this point, my husband, I've never seen him this frustrated before, but he is just really frustrated. I could tell he is starting to doubt. He's starting to lose faith. He could tell that my situation was getting worse. He's like, I need to step down. But he went on for, by the circuit overseer and everybody at this time kept telling him, acting like he said he didn't want to be part of Jehovah's Witness or that, like he was committing a sin or something. And he just wanted to take a break because he was like, look, you don't want to get me no help. My family is suffering. My wife needs help. She's sickly. She's getting worse. I just need to take a break and be with my family. And everybody, and it wasn't even just the elders and the circuit overseer. It was his family. It was his mom. It was his sister, his stepdad. Everybody was looking at him cross-eyed, like, are you crazy?
Okay, so my thing is, they didn't see you were sick, and they didn't see that he was under stress. All they knew was he was giving up this position.
Yeah. And the thing that was crazy was that, his mom and them were the main ones that had to keep running over to the house, because when he was at work, his mom was the main one that had to keep darting over to the house to get me and take me to the emergency room, or either to, take me to doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And everything. So they knew the situation and everything, but everybody was so tied up in position.
Mhm. Wow. So now you have all this stuff going on in your family and at the congregation, and you're not getting any support from the circuit overseer, from the people in the congregation, and now your family appears to be turning against you, because you're saying that your husband's talking to his family and telling them he wants to step aside.
Yes.
Is that what he did?
Yeah, he was talking to his family and letting them know, because of all this that's going on, I want to step aside. And they, of course, didn't come out and say, don't do it, but in so many words, they was hinting around to, why in the world would you do that?
Did they believe you guys about the congregation?
They knew that it had some problems because of in the past, but they kind of was acting like we was exaggerating the fact.
So you said you were at this congregation for 3 months before you couldn't do it anymore, and your husband served for 4 months before he realized he couldn't do it. So how much time did you spend in this congregation before your husband actually stepped aside as an elder?
We were there a year, and he went ahead and he was like, you know what, regardless of what anyone say, he went ahead and called an elders meeting and told them, according to thus in the scripture, family comes first. That's what God himself says. You have to take care of your family.
Mhm. And at that point, you guys just left?
We went ahead and we stayed about another, cause we already knew then that we were looking for a place in Savannah. And so we went ahead and we stayed until we knew that we had a job and everything lined up in Savannah. But he went ahead and told them, and they made the announcement, and they read my husband off like he had been deleted as an elder, and that wasn't the case. He had stepped aside as an elder, and he was so mad that after all we had done, not just for that congregation, but for Watchtower, period, that's how they did. And he contacted the circuit overseer, which by that time was the new circuit overseer in the area. And he went to the, I don't know if it was the Elders book or the OD book, and he referred to that page and everything. He told the circuit overseer, he said, of course, that's enough page. It was not supposed to be read like that if an elder stepped aside. And at first, the circuit overseer was trying to argue with him and say, they did it right. And he said no. He said, according to the publication that was printed by the Faithful and Discreet Slave on Thus and Us page, it said that this is how it's supposed to be read, not the way they did it. And so finally, the circuit overseer, admitted, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. And I'll have them, I'll shoot the coordinator a letter telling him to go back up the next week and to make sure he go back up there and do another announcement. But by that time, the damage was done. You know how witnesses like to talk. So everybody had done spread it all around just that quick of how the announcement was read. So by this time, everybody in the circuit was looking, at him funny, like he had done committed a sin. And it's just, things were just spiraling out of control for no reason. All because he wanted to step aside to try to take care of me, to be there more so for me and my son.
So now everybody's treating you guys like you've done something wrong. And so what do you do at that point?
We just kept our heads up, kept going to the meeting, different ones. A few kept coming up, trying to act the same, but we could tell that in the back of their minds they were thinking something or wondering something. But the majority of the congregation had turned their backs on us, that conditional love. The ones that we thought, really loved us all that time, that was rolling out the red carpet for us, they walked past and would barely speak. It's like everything, it was just a cold feeling in the congregation that didn't even need to be there.
So you guys actually stayed at this congregation that you didn't like, that was so sad after he stepped aside?
Yeah, we was there probably for about another month, a month and a half, until my husband found out that he had gotten the job that he wanted in Savannah, Georgia. And and then that's when we left.
And then you all left. So you guys moved away from the area totally then?
Yes, we did.
Now, after you moved to your new location, did you reestablish your relationship with Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yes, we did. During that time, we still felt like it was some truth to the witnesses and felt like, okay, this is the right, organization that God is using. But then again, we both had some doubts in our minds. So when we moved, it's like we went to the congregation in Savannah that we were assigned to for the area that we were living in for probably about 2 months. But while we were going to the congregation, what we were feeling was growing stronger and stronger. So my husband only went probably about barely a month, if that. Me and my son went for like 2 months. And the friends, they were very nice. They were very welcoming. And I even kept telling myself, I'm going to get reestablished. I'm going to, stay on the pioneer list. And I'm going to get with the friends, the pioneers here. And I'm going to continue to pioneer, even though I had all these doubts in my head and things that was just growing stronger and stronger. But then it just got to the point where I will never forget the very last meeting I went to. They had the visit of their circuit overseer. And that Tuesday night, he came through, and during his service talk, he was trying to pump everybody up for field service. And he just kept emphasizing, for this week for field service, y'all better make sure that your field service bag is filled full of these. And I thought he was going to hold up the Bible, but instead he held up the What Does the Bible Really Teach book. And he just kept focusing on that book. And it just disgusted me. I was just sitting there shaking my head like, I cannot believe he is focusing on this book so much. And he did not say anything about making sure that you had the Bible in your field service bag. And so that kind of was feeding into what I was already feeling, the doubts and stuff that was going on in my head about the organization before I had moved to Savannah. And then what made it even worse was the very last talk for the meeting was about donations, of course. And they played a video on the projector screen, and the whole video was about donating money to the branch and about where all the money goes to, and they showed all these different branches and different things. It kept talking about make sure we donate, all this kind of stuff, and how Jehovah loves a happy giver and all this kind of stuff. And by that time, I just felt nauseous. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I just can't. So when I left, I was like, well, when I got home, I said, maybe if I pray about it, maybe I can just go and just fake, just so that I can continue to be around my family. Because all of my family are Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I said, maybe I'll just be inactive and just go, just show up maybe like once every 2 or 3 weeks just to play it off so that I can still be around my family. But I promise you, every time it came time for the meeting, I could not make myself get ready and get dressed and go. I just couldn't. I would pray. And even with me praying, I could not go. I could not make myself go. And since then, I have not been back. It's been since this past February 2016, I have not been back to the Kingdom Hall. I just could not do it.
And how about your husband? You said he stopped going before you did.
Yes, he stopped like a month or two before me. He just couldn't do it.
What was his reasoning?
Same as mine. Me and him both had strong doubts. See, he had started researching and looking up stuff before me. I had little questions and doubts too, but I was trying to push mine off in the back of my head and say, well, I was trying to play mine off and say, well, maybe it ain't so. But once I got to the Kingdom Hall, those questions that I kept saying, maybe it's not so, kept popping up in my head. And I kept thinking that I was pushing them off, but I wasn't pushing them off. They were still right there in my head.
Let me ask you this. Did you and your husband ever have a conversation? Because you said your husband's on the Internet doing research. So he's researching, but he's not saying anything to you.
Oh, yeah, we were openly having conversations.
Okay. And then what kind of stuff was he looking at on the Internet?
The thing I think that before he started researching things, I think the thing that really got him was how he saw the congregation turn on him the way it did. And all he was trying to do the whole time was help.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how he was begging and pleading for help from the circuit overseer, somebody that's supposed to be representing the governing body. And the person was brushing him off. And I think that was the beginning of him, his eyes being open, and him seeing something's not right.
And then the other thing is when he got tired and he could no longer do this anymore, and then when he stepped aside, they made it seem like he was deleted for doing something wrong.
Yeah. All of that together just opened his eyes like something is not right. This cannot be God's organization. It can't be.
That's why I want to say to the listening audience that if you are experiencing things just like the Warren family did, that, open your eyes and start to research, because a lot of times people don't see what's going on in the organization until they are experiencing something similar to what you're going through. It's always something negative that has taken place in their lives to make them think, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? What's happening here?
Another very important point that I want to get across to the audience is that everybody thinks that you have to get on the Internet and start immediately looking up apostate stuff in order to turn against the organization. That's not true. Just like I told my mom, my dad, all of my siblings, they asked me, what apostate stuff you been looking up? I told them, and it's the truth. Me and my husband did not look up any apostate literature at all. We was reading the Watchtower and the Awake. That's what opened our eyes. What we did was we started making comparisons. We started looking at literature from like 1967 that they printed to the recent stuff, and we started making comparisons to stuff that they said because they contradict themselves a lot. And that's what started opening our eyes, because we said to ourselves, if someone claims that they have Holy Spirit and that they're being used directly by God, God does not make mistakes. There will not be that many mistakes and that many contradictions, and they would not be making all these false prophets and constantly saying the light is getting brighter. That just does not happen with the true God. So that's what really started opening up our eyes first before we started looking into other things. It was their own literature.
Were you guys trying to do research to look for things to substantiate your cause in the Watchtower?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then at what point did you actually stumble on an actual apostate site?
For me, it was when he came to me and showed me official letters saying that they were affiliated with the United Nations.
Okay. What books have you read? Have you read any books from ex-witnesses?
Oh man, when he told me about Christ So Conscious with Brother Ray Franz and Search of Christian Freedom, yes, those two books, those two were the main ones that did it for me.
Once people have read Crisis of Conscience, that's it. I mean,
exactly.
you already there. You in the ballpark now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I always wondered why. They know that. The Watchtower know that. And I always wondered why when I was active witness, I would always hear different people talk about Ray Franz. And I was like, who is Ray Franz? And they would always say that apostate and they would always talk bad about him and he this and he that. And I'm like, who is Ray Franz? And why out of all apostates, I hear y'all talk so badly about him? And now I see why. Because once you read his book, that's it.
Right.
You don't want anything else to do with Watchtower.
When you and your husband started to find out about this religion and you were like, the genie is now out of the bottle, did you try to talk to your family about what you were learning?
Yes, I did. It was a big mistake. It was too soon. I was too blunt the way I did it. I was so excited and I wanted them to know too, because I love them, and I don't want them to be hurt the way anymore and any longer. And I wanted them to know the truth. And so, I called them up and I was talking to them, and I just went about it the wrong way, And
how did they respond?
I could tell they were shocked, because they was quiet at first, and then it was like, what apostate literature have you been reading? That was their first response. And then when I told them, no, the first thing is that, all you got to do is just read their literature. It's contradictory and this and that and that. And I went on telling them about the failed prophecy and things like that. But then as the more they started asking questions, I thought that they was wanting to hear more. So I just kept talking and talking. And,
oh, my God.
And it ended up just not being well.
Oh, my God. So now, mind you, one of the things that we have not talked about, and that is your family and how long they had been in the organization and, with their titles and stuff are, because, when you start talking about the organization to people, you start to snatch away their hope. And the Watchtower has promised people a lot of different things. So I heard you mention your stepfather or your husband's stepfather or somebody's stepfather. So how did your family come into this organization? How long had they been in?
My mom and dad have been in the organization about 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Each.
So they're pre-1975?
Yes.
Okay. So, you got a solid foundation. Is your father an elder?
He isn't now, but he was about a good 30-some years.
Okay. Now, is your family shunning you right now?
Yes, they are. not like my husband's family. They are not talking to him at all. And as a matter of fact, when we were just fading away before we even sent our letter, because we just sent our letter like a month ago.
Okay.
But for the first 6 months, we were just fading away. We weren't disfellowship or disassociated. And his family still didn't want anything to do with us. They wouldn't talk to us. They didn't even want to call or text to talk to the grandson, because I guess they felt a demon was going to come through the phone or whatever. So, they would call my mom to try to arrange something so that my mom would get my son so that they can see him through her. But my mom and dad have always still text me, or either they'll call me to at least, their grandson.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, your husband's family didn't want to have any contact with you to the point that they neglected the grandchild, and
Yes.
then they wanted to go through your parents to arrange to see the child.
Yes.
So okay. So you told me your family's background. What is your husband's family's background in the organization?
His mom has been baptized ever since he was about 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
His real dad, of course, his mom and dad is, they're divorced. His real dad is worldly, as they say, worldly. He's not a Jehovah's Witness. His stepdad is born and raised in the organization. So, he's an elder, and he's one of the ones that he'll be proud to tell you about all his privileges.
Mm-hmm.
He has a lot of privileges. He's part of the liaison committee. He has something to do with the circuit assembly, helping to arrange the circuit assembly in the area. And
so he's like a spiritual He-Man, according to the organization. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
He's prominent in the circuit.
Yeah, and he's one of them types that he loves to let you know and remind you about all his privileges too.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we can understand why he's not talking. What about your husband's siblings?
He has one sister, and she is not saying anything whatsoever. I think it's more so to do with his parents about why she's not, contacting or saying anything. And but he has his dad and his stepmom. They're not witnesses, so we have them that we talk to from time to time, and he understands about the witnesses and how cultish they are. So
in other words, before your husband realized, you and your husband realized this wasn't the truth, he really didn't have a relationship with his real father?
They had a relationship, but it wasn't as strong.
Okay.
But now that this has happened, they have an even stronger relationship now. Because now my husband sees, hey, it's okay to talk to people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses. It's okay to have a relationship with people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses. They're normal people.
Mhm. What about your siblings? Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. And my youngest sister and my brother, I have not talked. They've shunned me. I have not talked to them since all of this has happened. But my oldest sister, her and her husband, around the same time that me and my husband have started noticing things, they started noticing things as well. So, thank God, me and my oldest sister, we still talk almost every day, over the phone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I still have her. And then, me and my family, they're not as strict as my husband's family. Like if I was to text my mom right now, she would text me back. It's just that if I was to ask them, can we go hang out? Can we go to the mall? Can I come over, spend some time with y'all? Or, just little things that families do. They're not going to go for that.
Oh.
But if I was to call them, just do small talk, or if I was to text them, they're fine with that. But
so how is that affecting you?
It is affecting me. I'm not gonna lie. I already suffer from depression, and then not having that family bond anymore, it really affects me. that's something that's not natural. You should be able to, if you want, especially living as close to your parents, if you want to just up and decide you want to go spend time with your mom, or you want to go spend time with your dad, or you just want to have a conversation with them, or you just want to hug them or touch them or something like that, you should be able to go do it. You should not have that rift there, all because of religion.
Right.
And God, and it's not even because of what God said, it's because of what 7 men said.
Let me ask you this. Since all of that has taken place and now you and your husband have moved and you're now not attending the Kingdom Hall and so forth, and all of that pressure is off of you, how are you feeling? How's your health?
I can say this. I'm not taking any medicine for the fibromyalgia. I have not had any setbacks with my fibromyalgia since I moved here. I have not. Every once in a while, I have fatigue, but it's nothing like when I was part of Watchtower. I may have fatigue like once every 4 months or something. I may have a bout, for 2 days of fatigue, and then it's not even extreme fatigue. It's just a little light fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, and then I had an episode maybe like a week ago of depression, but it wasn't even to the point of severe depression. It was something that I was able to come out of on my own. It wasn't something that was, so severe.
Right. How about your son? How's he feeling?
My son is doing much better. In school, his grades are much better. He seemed like a different child. He just seems like he emotionally he's more alive or something. And he even tells me and my husband, he said, Mom, he said, Dad, I'm so glad that we're not a Jehovah Witness anymore. And I said, why you say that? He said, I was so tired of getting picked on in school. He said, I got bullied all the time. He said, kids laughed at me. He said, because I didn't celebrate holidays. He said, because of all of the silliness. And I think, too, that's what helped to contribute to his anxiety a lot and his anxiousness was him going out in field service, because he was in field service all the time with me. We was always telling him about Armageddon. We was always telling him, you better make sure you do good, because if not, you get destroyed in Armageddon. And back
you're the one that was telling them all that, right? Because I forgot about that. I've been gone for so long, I forgot we used to talk about that all the time. But that's where that was coming from. The parents are reinforcing the stuff at home.
Yeah, because it's like you don't realize that that's negative and that's bad. You shouldn't be telling them that. But in the witness world, you think that's the norm. Like that's the way you keep your child on track. You know, but all that does is build up fear and anxiety. And then it's like, when you're in the meetings and stuff and your child's sitting there looking at them different pictures that they have of people running from fire coming from the sky and stuff like that. And
those new cartoons that they got. Did you guys get those new cartoons? Mm-hmm.
I saw those cartoons and stuff. And it's, that stuff, it does something to them.
Yeah, because you're getting these children, and these children are in their formidable years, and children are very smart, and they pick up things. I mean, kids can learn 2 and 3 languages before they turn 5. So now you're talking about Watchtower stuff. That's a language into itself, and these kids are picking that stuff up, and they know it like the back of their hand. They know more.
Exactly.
These kids know more than adults, and they're picking this stuff up, and they're soaking it up like a sponge.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So your son, he's old enough to understand this because he's 10 years old now, right?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
The sad thing is that he, some different nights, I will take turns. Either I pray or either he'll pray or either my husband will pray before he goes to bed. And one night, it brought tears to my eyes. He said a prayer, and he said that he really, really hoped that all of the witnesses, including his Grammy and his Papa, and his TT, can not be confused and that they can come to their senses. He said because he really, really misses them and he really, really loves them, and that they can come out of that religion and that they can come to Christ. And he said he kept saying he misses them. So he knows, and he knows that religion, the witnesses, he knows that it's nothing to it. He knows. He even told us. He went and looked in the back of his Bible, and he looked up the word false prophets, and he looked up the definition. And he came to me and my husband, and he read a definition, and he said, "This is what Jehovah's Witnesses are, right?" And we said, "Yeah, right." We said, "That's correct." So yeah, he knows.
Oh yeah, they're smart. So so this is really taking a toll on him, and it's really sad how they break up families, and it's just, I'm just so sad to see another child, falling victim to the religion and their strict rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you building a new clientele of friends now?
Yeah. He has plenty of friends here. In the area where we live at. I mean, there's so many kids in the neighborhood, and they all get along and they all play. Me, since I'm not working, it's hard for me to build up friends, so all I really have is my sister, whenever we can get together. So I'm still trying to build up, my friends. Pretty much have nothing.
Yeah, you do, but but let me say this, when I left the organization, it was hard for me too. I was also working a job, and I reached back to people I used to work with, and I became friends with them and stuff like that. But I always told my husband that it would have been easier when we left if we had children, because you can always get with the other parents at the school. So maybe you might try to, I don't know if you're doing this or not, but volunteering at the school and going up there and meeting the other parents, and then maybe that would be another way to kind of reach out to other people.
Yeah, I have one parent that lives kind of close to me, and every once in a while, me and her husband and my husband will get together with the kids, and we'll do little things. And then I have signed up to volunteer for this school year for a lot of different things, because this is the first full school year that he'll be at that school, because last year with us just moving, in Savannah, he was only there. He was only there probably, I think, like barely half the school year. So
Okay.
this would be the first full school year, and so I'm looking forward to being part of different programs and things like that. So this is the year that I'm hoping to meet a lot of people.
And also look in terms of reaching out, and you do the inviting, because sometimes when you're looking for somebody to invite you, they may not do that as readily, but you reach out and invite people to different things as well. There's a lot of different things you can do. And when you're trying to get to meet people, and I've referred people to Toastmasters International, where you can go and meet people who want to be leaders in their communities or public speakers, and that's an instant connection right there. So there's a lot of things you can do, and a lot of people you can hook up with. And when you get older, it is very hard to find friends, and especially in your situation because you're not working. So it's a lot. And you know what, too, Jennifer, it's also true that you've left. It's all fresh in your mind, all of you. And now with this shunning for your child, so you left, you shed off the Watchtower, but now they have your family hostage. And so your child is probably experiencing anxiety from that, too. So is he still seeing his therapist?
Since we moved, he's not seeing a therapist, but he's seeing a psychiatrist, because psychiatrists don't really talk things out. All they do is prescribe medicine.
Well, yeah, he needs to see a therapist.
So I have to try to get him a therapist. Yeah.
Mhm. Because psychiatrists don't do talk therapy. They let you know that right up front. So he needs to get into a program where he's talking to someone about his situation, because a lot of times people, when we leave the organization, we think that now that we're gone, everything's going to be okay now, but it's like anybody that's been in any type of an abusive situation, and that's what we were in, was an abusive religion. So, your child has been traumatized by this religion, and now he needs someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's true.
So you definitely want to get that taken care of. Don't let that, wait too long to do that.
I'm telling you, I was just thinking, I'm like, what else can I do? Because, you can't just keep pushing meds on a child. And his anxiety it just seems like it's just getting worse. And, something as simple sometimes something as simple as that could be right there in your face, but when you're going through something, you can't think about it. And it's like, boom, you know, you just said about the therapist, and I'm like, duh, why didn't I think about that? He called that out.
Yeah, a lot of times these kids are being medicated and they don't need medication. And I do have friends that they were trying to I have a friend that they wanted to put his daughter on meds, and he refused to let that happen. And she worked it out. You know, she was super duper hyper and everything, and that was just part of her personality. And they wanted to put her on Ritalin or something, but he said no. So the thing is, you know, monitor this medication that your son is on. Go on the internet, Google it, and find out what he's taking. And that might be making him more stressed out than what he needs to be. And then get a second opinion from another psychiatrist to find out whether or not he needs to be on it. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not trying to tell you to take him off the medication, but always question them what they're giving you and why they're giving it. Because sometimes they will try to push medication on these kids. And a lot of times if we don't go do our homework, we won't know that my child shouldn't even be taking this medication. Look at the side effects of it.
That's
and
true.
Make sure that, you know, it's not causing more harm than it needs to. Yeah.
That's true.
So definitely get that straightened out. And then you guys need to also, you know, almost have like a Bible study to, you know, unindoctrinate him. You know, every day that you have an opportunity, let him know why you're not going to the meetings. Let him know, you know, you didn't realize the organization was like this. Explain to him about shunning, why people do it. You know, you may have to really explain that so that he can kind of like be deprogrammed, because he's still programmed too. To just say we're not doing it doesn't give him any answers to what is actually really going on and why his grandparents are shunning you guys.
Yeah, his dad, he definitely had to go ahead and first thing, he had to go ahead and explain to him, because I'm telling you, it was way worse than this when we first stopped going. I mean, his mama was just off the chain with stuff she was doing. And she was like sending literature to our address, but instead of putting our name on it, she was putting his name on it. Like we weren't going to open it. Like he's the one that checks the mail and stuff and get it. And she was saying like the tract Return to Jehovah to him. And I'm like, why would she send that to him? He's not baptized. He's not even a publisher, unbaptized publisher.
Well, they're trying to get at him so they can keep indoctrinating him.
I mean, he wasn't even never an unbaptized publisher. He was never even baptized or nothing. And she was saying stuff like that, just being disrespectful after my husband was nicely asking her, you know, please don't do that. You know, we're not disrespecting y'all, so please don't disrespect us. And she would I'm
surprised that your husband's family doesn't try to, you know, get visiting rights or, I mean, you know, make it seem like they want to visit him so that they can continue taking him to the Kingdom Hall, because some parents will do that.
Yeah, she tried that too. She tried that one time, and it backfired. It was something that she tried to do, and it backfired, and we was like, no.
Yeah, because see, I have a cousin who is, she's not disfellowshipped, but she has 3 children, and my aunt, whenever she comes home to visit, because she lives part-time in Florida and part-time in Michigan, and what she does is whenever she gets that audience with those grandkids, because my aunt is a regular pioneer, and, you know, when you get those grandkids, you can study the Bible with them, you can count time and all that. So while my cousin is not really actively going to the meetings when her mother's not in town, those kids are being indoctrinated every time she's there, and these kids don't forget this stuff. So it doesn't make a difference, you know, and her daughter's baptized, but, you know, she don't really want this religion because it's so confining. So when her mother goes back to Florida, she don't go to the meeting, but when her mom comes home, she's home, and she goes to the meetings with the mother. But her kids are under 10 years old, and those kids are getting a daily dose of Watchtower, and they don't know that this is not the truth. And because my cousin does not know this is not the truth, she does not have any, you know, qualms with her kids going to the meetings. So these young kids that have these grandparents that are practicing Jehovah's Witnesses are still in danger of being indoctrinated. And that's why it's very important that you know, what's going on with your child. And you don't really want your child going to the Kingdom Hall. And I will tell anybody that, because when I was going to the Kingdom Hall as a small child, I believed everything from the platform, you know. And you don't forget that stuff. And when my dad told me the other day that my niece said that she wants to raise her kids in a religion, and if she becomes anything, she'll be a Jehovah's Witness, my first question was, did she listen to anything we told her? But see,
Wow.
she was raised in this religion, and her foundation is Jehovah's Witness. So I'm just saying it's a real serious situation that people don't understand. And if you don't go out there and number one, if you leave the organization and you ain't even read Christ as a Conscience and you don't even know that this religion was built on the foundation of this religion was built on a lie, you will go back.
Yeah.
Because when you have problems in your life, you will go back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very important that we educate, you know, people that are leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate your time. I want to thank you so much for being on the Struggles of Jehovah's Witness Women. And
no problem.
we wish you all the best. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for taking out the time to do a little therapy.
You're welcome.
If you've been in the struggle and want to appear as a guest on our show, email us at exjwct@gmail.com. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of critical thinkers.